Hey everybody, welcome to TIW Podcast. I'm Eric, and today I watched WWE Monday Night Raw episode 1355, broadcast on Monday, May 13th, 2019. We're in week 20 of 2019. It's crazy. We're almost to the halfway point of the year. Kind of. Not really. We're still a month and a half away from that. But still, we're heading towards this weekend is Money in the Bank. That's pretty exciting. Next weekend is Double or Nothing over there in Las Vegas. That's pretty exciting. And then just a short 2 weeks after that, I believe it is the they just announced the name of it. It's the WWE Super Showdown. Which is the same name. It's almost the same name, but there's a hyphen. Was there a hyphen in the Australia one? But this the Saudi Arabia event, which I may or may not actually watch because I'll be traveling that day, I think. Yes, something like that. But anyway, yeah, I actually enjoyed a few segments of this show. A couple of the matches were, well, one match in particular was fantastic. But before I get to talking about all of that, I want to talk a little bit about the Mandela Effect. This popped up while I was watching. I was there on Twitter, and somebody posted something about the Mandela Effect in regards to Looney Tunes, about the difference between it being Tunes, Tunes, and Toons, Toons. And this instance and then other similar instances of this so-called Mandela Effect, I believe, are just people being bad at spelling, especially when it's it's something that you don't ever type out or write out, and maybe you haven't even watched since you were a little kid or read since you were a little kid, like the Berenstain Bears. That's the big culprit of this in most people's minds. Is I could have sworn it was spelled with an E. It's Berenstain Bears with an A. I did pronounce it like it was with an E, so I'm probably not helping with that at all. But hey, when was the last time that you read a Berenstain Bears book? And when had you ever seen the last name with Stain it's not very common. So it would make sense that little young minds would like smooth out that outlier and think, oh, it's like all the other names that I've seen that end with that type of ending, the Steen, Stein, and would just completely forget about any instance of Stain. So, yeah, not to say. Okay, here is on the Wikipedia page for false memories. False memories can sometimes be shared by multiple people. In 2010, this was dubbed the Mandela Effect. I could have sworn it was in 2008. What? By self-described paranormal consultant Fiona Broom, in reference to a false memory she reported of the death of South African leader Nelson Mandela in the 1980s, who was at the time still alive, which she claimed was shared by perhaps thousands of other people. Other such examples include memories of the Berenstain Bears name previously being spelled as Berenstain, and of a 1990s movie titled Shazam, starring comedian Sinbad as a genie. So that other one is also, it's a combination of misspelling, because that movie is called Kazam, and it stars Shaquille O'Neal. And I guess thinking that it's Sinbad, because Sinbad sounds like it is a character, not the guy, but the Sinbad that a lot of people know from the Arabian Nights. All of that is related to genies and all that kind of thing. So it's just not remembering very well. So all this. Okay, pseudoscience. Back to the article. Pseudoscience commentators such as Broom have speculated about alternate realities as an explanation for such shared false memories. However, most science researchers, I think I'm going to agree with these people, most science researchers and commentators suggest that these are instead examples of false memories shaped by similar cognitive factors affecting multiple people, such as social and cognitive reinforcement of incorrect memories, or false news reports and misleading photographs influencing the formation of memories based on them. For example, the false memories of Shazam have been explained as a conflation of memories of the comedian wearing a genie costume during a TV presentation of Sinbad the Sailor movies in 1994. In a similarly named 1996 film, Kazam, featuring a genie played by Shaquille O'Neal. So, like what I just said, pretty much. A 2010 study examined people who were familiar with the clock at Bologna Central Railway Station, which had been damaged in the Bologna Massacre bombing in August 1980. In the study, 92% falsely remembered that the clock had remained stopped since the bombing, when in fact the clock was repaired shortly after the attack. Years later, the clock was again stopped and was then set to the time of the bombing in observation and commemoration of that bombing. Okay, let's see. So how many people, how old were all of those people at the time of that bombing in 1980? And did they actually think about it until the next time that they actually saw it, which could have been after they stopped it again years later? And then they just maybe assumed, oh, it's been stopped. It stopped in commemoration of that. That must have meant that was stopped. So that, I think that's pretty explainable as well. But I made the joke on Twitter. I said, if every time I misspelled something, it meant that there is another parallel universe that exists, then we are in one of. I didn't phrase it exactly like this. I should have. Then we are in one of infinite multiverses, which I may believe anyway. But this thing of it is not proof of that, and it's not because of that, I don't think. What I actually think is that at every single moment, it's connected to a specific timeline that leads up to that moment, and your memories are of that timeline. So you may not have actually been in this timeline that entire time. This goes, it branches out into the past and into the future every single moment in time. And that's what I think. So all the infinite possible universes are held together into a loose, very loose timeline by the consciousness, so that it makes sense in some type of fashion that the consciousness is tuned to do. And so, if I remember something from 20 years ago, it might not even matter whatever way I remember it, and if it was actually the way I remembered it or not, if it doesn't have any actual bearing on what is happening in the moment right now. And because of that, and the unreliability of memory in general, whether or not this multiverse theory is true, the unreliability of memory in general, and even the unreliability of our perception of what is around us, of everything we hear, see, taste, smell, everything we sense at any given moment, a lot of it is just constructed by our consciousness to make sense of it at that time. For example, something like our blind spots, the area in our vision that just get filled in by our brain to make a continuous image. It's like the fill content, smart fill content function in Photoshop. It's like, okay, there's nothing here. Like if there's a big black spot in your photo and then you selected it and used that content aware fill, and it just takes, it's like, oh, what's around it? Okay, it's probably looks something like that. So we'll just copy and paste all of that into there. Same thing with the blind spot. But it's more than just that, because, how many frames per second does the average human perceive things happening? It's probably, what is it? At least 100 frames per second, something like that. That's when things start to look super smooth that you don't notice the actual frame rate as far as like video games and stuff go. So anything faster than that, it doesn't really matter. And a lot of the information just gets ignored, or like a compression algorithm, like stuff that stays the same. It's like don't bother updating that. Like when you stare at those optical illusions where like the dots start to disappear, it's because like there's no new information. We don't need to mess with any of that. So anyway, I don't know. I guess that kind of connects to the Mandela effect. But I like talking about this stuff and thinking about this kind of stuff. And I think I'll sprinkle it a little bit more in these episodes, especially when they aren't the top-notch episodes to talk about. All right, now that we're 11 minutes into this episode, let's talk about tonight's Monday Night Raw. But before we talk about Monday Night Raw, let's talk about the Holy Grail, the story of the most infamous lost tape in the or whatever the title of the thing is. A short 30-minute documentary and the match itself about a match between Magee and Bret Hart that was recorded. They had commentary for it and everything, but it did not air on television, so it was lost for a number of years. It was in Bret Hart's tape archives, which is secretary. Well, go and watch the thing. They tell the story of how the tape got lost and was found again, all that kind of stuff. The match was pretty good. It's pretty decent, especially for a 1986 match. Some pretty cool stuff going on in there. And the story of it being that Bret Hart was just calling the shots, and he is the reason that the match was so awesome. Because Magee did not have a good match again. Like, that was his best match ever, and was not able to replicate that at all. Presumably because he didn't have another match with Bret Hart. So yeah, the story of it is really cool. He's going to be at StarCast. Magee is going to be there. Bret Hart is going to be there as well. But so that is pretty cool. That a lot of people are going to be able to meet him, talk to him about that match. And now everybody who has a WWE Network subscription can go and watch that match. And I recommend it, especially if you like matches from that era and if you like Bret Hart. They really, really praised Bret in this. He was one of the ones. Actually, this is the first documentary featuring Bret Hart where Bret is not really gloating about himself. And I think that is that makes me like him a little bit more now, I think. But it's everybody else interviewed for it was talking about how good he is, and I think that helps a little bit. It makes it a little bit easier to agree with them, because he was very, very, very good. So that was cool about this documentary as well, because some of the other ones I talked about it on I did an episode about the one, was it 300 days or something like that, 350, I forget what that documentary is called, where all of Bret Hart's interviews in that were about, not all of them were about, but he really, really talked himself up a lot in that documentary. And that put as kind of a sour taste in my mouth about him. But then this one is like the complete opposite, and it's won me back over just a little bit. So anyway, Monday Night Raw. Miz TV with Roman and Elias and Lashley attack on behalf of Shane. So you end up with Miz and Roman versus Elias and Lashley, which ended in disqualification when Shane attacked Miz, threw him into the steps, I think it was. Then we had Mojo Rawley defeat Apollo Crews. Mojo has cracks on his face. And Apollo got his leg hurt, and Mojo just zeroed in on that and really took advantage of it. Backstage, Alexa is supposed to be, not backstage, she was supposed to, she's scheduled to be in a fatal four-way match between her and the other Raw contestants of the Money in the Bank match, the ladder match. But she lost her luggage. She's on the phone with the airport or whatever, taking jabs at the royal baby Archie and all that. She doesn't call it by name, but because she lost her luggage, Nikki Cross feels bad for her, and Alexa actually talks to her, which wins Nikki over immediately, much to her detriment, as it will eventually turn out. It hasn't yet, but it's very obvious Alexa is just taking advantage of her. So Alexa convinces Nikki, well, you could take my place in the match. And Nikki is actually excited for it because it gets her a chance to be in a match on TV, which is admittedly something that we all want to see for Nikki Cross. Anyway, but what is that shadow from? Oh, the shadow's from the lights. All shadows are from the lights. Duh. But it's the lamp. The shadow of the lamp is being caused by a different light bulb. Then we had the contract signing between Becky, Lacey, and Charlotte. All right. Baron Corbin defeated Ricochet. All right. Rey Mysterio versus Cesaro. They brawl in the locker room after Cesaro talks some trash about Rey's son, saying, your son looks more like Samoa Joe than you. Are you sure you're his dad? And stuff like that. Pretty rude of Cesaro, gotta say. But the brawl was pretty cool. And the match they had a little bit later was fantastic. But before that, we had that fatal four-way. I almost said quadruple threat. Naomi versus Natalya versus Dana Brooke versus Nikki Cross. Nikki Cross won the match. Ladders did get involved because there were no disqualifications in a fatal four-way. And Alexa was on commentary for this match, which was a lot of fun. And she says, I won because I chose her. That means I win. And so Nikki helped Alexa. They're best friends now, at least in Nikki's mind. Nikki helps her get a ladder, and Alexa climbs up it and grabs the suitcase. In a spoiler for Sunday, at least that's what I'm hoping for, that Alexa wins. And it could even be because Nikki Cross helps, because they're on the disqualifications in a ladder match, are there? Rey Mysterio versus Cesaro. Oh my God, go check this match out. My favorite moments, and I think probably most people's favorite moments, were a delayed one-handed superplex off of the top by Cesaro delivered to Rey Mysterio. That was pretty awesome. Well, it was kind of arrogant if you ask me. No, it was awesome. And then we had 619 countered. Cesaro caught Rey out of that 619 into a big swing. That was great. And then after that, the Swiss 19 was avoided by Rey Mysterio. And then he, shortly after that, hit his own 619 and a big splash off the top and pinned Cesaro for the win. The newest edition of Firefly Funhouse, we learned Bray's secret that he is a psycho mutant clown thing. So, yeah. And then our main event, Sami Zayn versus Sami Zayn versus Braun Strowman. Braun has his spot in the Money in the Bank ladder match on the line against Sami. So if Sami wins, then he is in the match. It's a falls count anywhere, and so they end up in the concourse where Baron Corbin starts wailing away at these guys. Well, before that, during Sami Zayn's entrance, he danced up the ladders and dancing on top of the ladder. I really enjoyed that. But they are fighting up in the concourse where Baron Corbin got his lashes in, and then backstage, Drew joined in the fun. And then finally, over on the stage, back out in the arena, Braun just kept kicking out. There were some pin attempts made, but back out on the stage, they throw him through a ladder, and they basically triple pin him. The weight of all three of them put down onto Sami and through into Braun Strowman to get the pin. So Sami Zayn is in the ladder match. And I kind of want him to win now. But we'll see what happens on SmackDown. If one of the other the SmackDown contestants. I keep calling them contestants. The SmackDown entrants, the contenders, in the ladder match. If any of them get me more excited than Sami Zayn does. By the way, go look up Jack Swagger, or rather Jake Hager, in his Bellator fight from this weekend after his match, talking about how hard he got emotionally and his fight boner. This episode's getting banned from iTunes and YouTube, probably. There's a algorithm to find people talking about the word boner. If they're talking about tromboner. Let's see. Oh, hey, this is a very important thing. I think this is a brilliant strategy on Baron Corbin's part, that after the win, after Sami Zayn got his spots, they all retreated to the backstage, and Braun Strowman came back to his senses, and Baron Corbin threw Sami Zayn back out to be beaten to death by Braun Strowman. He was put through the table, through the announced commentary table, and that puts their newly entered opponent on a stretcher. It puts him possibly out of action for that match, but maybe it'll backfire. Maybe Braun will get put back into it. We don't know. We'll find out on Sunday. But if he is still in the match and he is just limping around and barely able to walk, that makes it all the more easier. That's redundant. All the easier for Baron Corbin and or Drew McIntyre to win. But I mean, there's no way they're going to help one or the other to win. They both want that thing. So yeah, I think they're going to neutralize each other, causing neither one of them to be able to get that briefcase. Who else is in the match? Ricochet is in there. I already talked about how he was beaten by Corbin earlier. That was kind of, why did that happen? But I do really enjoy every single time, I've talked about this before, every single time that Baron Corbin is introduced as that town's favorite son, I enjoy that very much. It makes me laugh, and I like it a lot. Another thing that really made me laugh earlier is a tweet from, so the original tweet was let's see. The original tweet was somebody talking about, okay, here we go. A tweet from the AV Club. I guess this is probably the headline of the article that you're linking. Rami Malek to hunt a serial killer with Denzel Washington. And then the link. And this is retweeted, or was quoted by Jermaine Clement. And he just says, "Good luck, guys." Good luck on the hunt. You can get him. I enjoyed that a lot. So, if in any of the many multiverses you enjoyed this episode or not, let me know by tweeting me at TIW Podcast. Go to TIWpodcast.com for more reviews. If you enjoyed this episode or anything else on the site, please share some links with your friends. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever you like to listen to this thing. And I'll be back real soon with another episode about Doom Patrol. I'm determined to be caught up before I head to Comic-Con Revolution this weekend. Go to demonjackal.com for more information about that. And of course, tomorrow night will be SmackDown Live and 205 Live, also from the O2 in London. And then, of course, this week's NXT and NXT UK on Wednesday. Stay tuned for all of that and more. Thanks for listening. This has been TIW Podcast. Stay safe out there, super friends, in all the infinite multiverses. Bye.